Hey everyone, welcome to week 73. Today is day 1, Monday. This is the beginning of a new week, and the theme for this week is going to be rhythm. So let's see how we do.
This is the rhythm of the night.
Okay, let's get started. This is day 1. This is Monday. This is the beginning of our new week. And I had a little bit of trouble trying to come up with the title for this week. And I'll try to explain why. At first, I thought I would call it pattern. And it would be about the repetition of form, because that's basically pattern, that you recognize a single form and it just repeats itself throughout in our case, throughout the painting, throughout the image. But I thought what I was trying to speak about was a little bit broader, and that if I spoke about pattern, even though I think I'm going to concentrate on pattern in fabric to make these examples a little bit clearer during the week, I thought the idea was a little broader, or at least the origin of the idea was a little broader. So instead of pattern, I thought, well, maybe we could speak about repetition, which is really nice. It's something that I've done in my painting, and I'll speak more about this in a little bit. If you think about it in more abstract terms, that's what I really am interested in. It's yes about identifying a form that iterates throughout the image. So that recurring shape was actually very important. But then I thought, well, what if it's not about a single shape that repeats itself? You know, what if it's not just like a polka dot that you can see repeating itself throughout the whole image? What if it's an idea that repeats itself? What if it's a little harder to grasp, but you can sense that there is this echoing throughout the image? And then I thought, well, that creates something that I'm really interested in, which is rhythm. And I thought that rhythm in the end would encompass really nicely what I'm kind of looking for throughout this week. And yes, I'm probably going to use patterns throughout the week to try and express this. But I think, hopefully, that's the key word, that throughout the image, even though some of the exercises can have the same origin, we will be able to speak about something a little bit different. So that's where we landed on rhythm. Now, I want this to be an idea of rhythm that concentrates itself on the replicating of forms, the repetition of forms. We as viewers recognize that there is a shape, and it's a shape, or let's call it a decision, dispersed throughout the image that is easily recognizable. And because we recognize it, because we identify it in an image, we're able to traverse that image. So if you think about it, what we're trying to get to with this idea of rhythm has to do with composition, has to do with how we travel through an image. I think that's at the core of this exercise. It's not just about repeating shapes. It's not just about, designing a stencil and then cutting it up and putting it on top of the painting. And then suddenly you have this beautiful pattern that could be part of a couch or wallpaper that would make a really nice decorative element that obviously would be essential for the visual composition. But I think what interests me more than that is using that so that we can travel through the image in a particular way. So the painting we're going to do today, very, very simple painting. And I thought it was interesting because it's going to be born from something, but I think the way we try to achieve our objectives is very different from that which originated the idea. So let's start with the origin. There is a painting at the Met that I absolutely love. It's a painting by DAGNAN-BOUVERET. He's a French late 19th century painter, and the painting is gorgeous. The execution of the painting is absolutely flawless. I adore these paintings because they're painted in the manner, and we've talked about this before, in which I feel the evolution of realist, naturalist painting concluded. I really believe that there is such a huge change in the 1900s. The 1900s becomes almost like Big Bang of painting, because I think all the classical teachings, everything that we as humanity went through in the Renaissance, High Renaissance, Mannerism, Baroque, Romanticism, Neoclassicism, Academy, Naturalism, I think it all concludes in the end of the 19th century. I really do. I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that that is the peak of painting. Now, you have to take a ton of steps back and look at painting as this very, very broad movement. It's this pulsing force that's pushing, I don't want to call it forward, because I don't want to say that we're better painters now than we were, 400 years ago, because that's simply not true. It doesn't bear comparison. But what I'm trying to say is that there is this pulse to move, and it's okay if we understand that it's moving forward, if we realize that forward doesn't mean that we're painting better. But in the case of this naturalist impulse, where it wanted to understand form in space, and it wanted to communicate through the three-dimensionality of form. It wanted to express emotions through the understanding of light and atmosphere. If you kind of draw a line, and I know it's a line that many times kind of breaks up. It's hard to understand painting as a single movement when you think, for example, of Romanticism and Neoclassicism. If you concentrate on only those two isms, they seem to be going in opposite directions. So it would be hard to say, oh, those two forces are pushing together forward. But I really do feel that if you take a step back, and maybe you have to take a huge step back, you kind of see that this force of painting is just but one. It has to do with painting and not so much about with all these bifurcating, branching philosophies that are seemingly pushing painting towards different directions. I want to believe that ultimately there's so much more things that are holding painting together, regardless of their manifestos, than things that make those examples different from each other. I mean, they're superficially different, but that doesn't mean that there's not a DNA, a single DNA that is holding everything together. So for me, this bigger idea of painting, again, is just but one. But I can rationally look at the end of 19th century painting, particularly this naturalist impulse, and say, wow, the examples of painting in the 19th century are so advanced. They're able to understand form and composition in such a dynamic way, and they're able to depict it in such a naturalist manner. Some of the most incredible, impressive works of painting can be found in a 30-year span. From the mid-70s to the beginning of the 1900s, there's such a huge array of incredibly executed works of art that I really truly believe that that's the peak of painting. Obviously, if you concentrate on each particular moment of time, you're going to find amazing works of art. If you solely want to look at the Renaissance, you're going to find incredible paintings. If you want to look at the High Renaissance, you're going to find amazing paintings. If you want to look at the Baroque, you're going to find some of the most beautiful paintings you're ever going to see. Comparing them, I think it's kind of pointless. I think every single moment in the history of mankind, we've been able to produce, if we want to say things through painting, some of the most wonderful works of art. So every single moment in history has its own jewels. For me, this particular painting is special because, for one, it was at the Met, so it was a painting that I could visit and revisit constantly, but it was doing something that was very much tied to this idea of illustration that I absolutely loved. So in this DAGNAN-BOUVERET, we see something that I absolutely adored, and he not only does it in this painting, he has other paintings where he paints the Breton women, and I don't want to give my friend Vincent a heart attack by saying Breton women, so I'm going to say the Breton women. And what interests me most about this painting is how Bouveret was using the coiffe bigoudaine that the Breton women used. Again, I'm probably giving Vincent like a heart attack, but I'm trying my best to do at least an effort with my French pronunciation. But essentially, the painting for me was about the hairdresses. That was it. I think it was fascinating how DAGNAN-BOUVERET could use such a simple shape. And it wasn't like a single shape, because all the hairdresses would be just a little bit different. But the idea of them being this particular type of headdress would be incredibly important for the painting, in the sense that you could traverse the painting. You could go into the depths of the painting if you wanted to almost like hopscotch your way through the painting by recognizing these very light angular shapes. It is not just about acknowledging that this is the coiffe that these women used, but it's also saying, I want you, observer, to traverse this painting in this particular manner and at this particular speed. I want you to stop, almost like take a break at all these instances of the painting. And I thought that that was absolute genius. And I'm saying that this was something that had to do with my illustration interest because at the same time, I believe, I was also learning about Golden Age American illustration. And you obviously can't mention Golden Age illustration without mentioning the father of all American illustration, which is Howard Pyle. And Howard Pyle would do this constantly in an image where he would recognize a shape, he would repeat it, and not just echo it mechanically. It wasn't just about copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. No, it was about understanding the essence of a shape, and then you could simplify that shape in countless of manners. But as an observer, we were introduced to these shapes, we became familiar with these shapes, and then we could just traverse the image now freely. I mean, at least we think it's freely, but In a great painting, the illustrator, the painter, has the ability to take us by the hand and to guide us through the painting. But we as observers, we could just start picking at this image saying like, I was introduced to, and let's use, a very famous painting by Pyle, The Battle at Bunker Hill. So I'm introduced to a British redcoat, and now I'm going to recognize throughout the image all these instances that are saying, hey, this shape that you saw in this plane of this image, it is now going to be here and here and here. It's going to be in shade. But if you walk through shade and towards the light, you're going to recognize it now in the light. So even though one is made up of that darker shade of red in shadow, and the other one is going to be this brighter red-orange in light, your brain is just going to tie all of these things together. And you're not going to see just a redcoat. You're going to see a very organized army of the British forces. And that's amazing. Again, that's using the ability your brain has to just pick a shape and say, okay, I recognize this shape. I read this shape. And then if we see that shape somewhere else in an image, we just want to go there because we already have the sense of familiarity with that particular shape. So it's almost like a breadcrumb trail throughout the image. And like I said, good painters, good illustrators are essentially great directors, and they are going to tell us how they want us, without us knowing, but how they want us to travel through this image. Does that mean that that's the only way we can solve one of these exercises? By just recognizing a shape. It doesn't have to be, again, a singular shape. Remember, those hairdresses were all different in the Bouveret painting. And the redcoats, even though it's a uniform, which means that, they're essentially all the same, they're not presented to us exactly the same. So there doesn't have to be this singular idea that repeats throughout the image. So can we do that? Can we, in a very abstract manner, speak about that recognition of form and that repetition, even though we don't necessarily want to speak about, let's say, a crowd, a multitude? Because that works incredibly well when we're trying to speak about crowds, when we're trying to acknowledge that there's an individual presence within a crowd. But what if we don't want to paint that? What if we want to speak about repetition or pattern or this idea of rhythm, but we don't want to paint this huge expanse of land or this kind of trail that's leading you inside a painting? What if we don't want to spatially speak about those things? Because the idea is for us not to be forced to paint anything, not to equate a very broad exercise with just single imagery. If we speak about rhythm and repetition in forms, it doesn't mean that we have to end up with a painting that looks like a Howard Pyle or like a DAGNAN-BOUVERET. That's not the point. What's going on in the surface of those paintings is just the way they eventually wanted to solve those particular ideas, because they realized that using repetition in form aided them with the narrative that they wanted to communicate. But that doesn't mean that this is a recipe now. That doesn't mean that, this is the only way to solve an idea, even though we want to speak about the same core notions. So I still like the idea of uniform. I still like the idea of headdresses. But I thought, well, what if I don't want to repeat a single headdress? What if I find repetition within the headpiece? What if it's about the rhythms that are inherent to the headpiece? And I thought, okay, that sounds really interesting. And then it was a matter of me saying, oh, okay, Dani, help me out. Wear my beanie, because that's obviously my beanie, because it covers my bald head when it gets cold. And it's a knitted beanie. So there's a pattern to all the knitting, but there's also this bigger horizontal pattern. There are these light and dark stripes going through the beanie. So I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. I have two sort of excuses to speak about repetition and rhythm, and it's really interesting because they're going in sort of separate directions. And I thought it's going to be nice if, even though this is a very enclosed shape, this beanie has a very particular shape, if in the little instances that we can recognize that there is repetition, that we are going to start with a lighter sort of ochre stripe, and then we're going to go to a darker earth stripe, and that's going to repeat itself a few times throughout the beanie. Even though there's this bigger rhythm going throughout, there's also this smaller rhythm that has to do with the knitting. And I thought, oh wow, am I going to do all these threads? Am I going to really want to make the painting about that? And I realized, no, I don't want that to be the painting. I think that if I go so much into detail, which would be wonderful, by the way, but the painting would be about something completely different. It would also speak about rhythm, but I think it would be a lot more staccato than I want. I don't want my painting to be a barrage of all these tiny little strokes, these tiny little decisions. That's a wonderful painting in and of itself, but I don't think that's the painter that I am, and I don't think that's the painting that I wanted to paint. I much rather just suggest, almost like enunciate those vertical rhythms in the knitting, and obviously construct the whole structure of the beanie based on the horizontal traveling of those stripes. I thought it was a simple idea, and again, it's something that's born from multi-figured compositions that are incredibly complex. But that doesn't mean that if we like a painting, if we like a DAGNAN-BOUVERET, or if we like a Howard Pyle, that's the sort of painting that we're going to paint. We can love paintings that spur our own paintings, that light the spark for our own paintings, but that don't really look like the painting that we end up designing. They could be absolutely essential to the framework of the way we construct the paintings. But again, our work doesn't have to look like that. Our work just feeds off of the wonderful things, the discoveries that these incredible painters made, but we don't have to produce the same exact paintings. And I think that that's what's really most important about every exercise that we've done. The fact that we realize that we can base our work on all of painting history, the expansive history of painting, not just of Eurocentric painting, but every single moment of painting that humanity has provided us with. We can take all that information, even though it seems that it branches out and it's going to so many different directions. If we step back, we're only going to see a tree. If we step farther back, even though a tree is made up of these hundreds of branches that are seemingly going to opposite directions, when we step back, it's not hundreds upon hundreds of branches. No, it's just a single tree. And I think that that's what's wonderful about this, that we realize that that tree is there to provide us with knowledge and experience, and it is up to us to do whatever we want with that. So I went with something very simple today. I wanted to make a slight nod to the coif, even though, I'm not going to say that a beanie is quite the contemporary coif, but I like the idea of the headdress, and I like the idea of these repeating forms. So that's going to be the painting for today. Join us tomorrow where we try to do something a little more graphic, maybe a little more towards the drawing side of the painting. I think it's going to have to do with decision making, but that's going to be tomorrow. Remember, brush up on your Spanish. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you guys. Bye.